happens when the person you're caring for is the same person who hurt you? Not a difficult mother-in-law hurt. Not, we don't always see eye to eye hurt. I mean the kind of hurt that shows up in your body when the phone rings and her name pops up. The kind where you're standing in the kitchen, managing her pillbox and grieving a childhood that never happened at the same time. If that's you, welcome back to From Overwhelmed to Relief, the Senior Caregiving Podcast. I'm your host, Shannon Calles. This is the podcast where we break down senior care decisions, talk honestly about dementia and caregiving, and help adult daughters find relief while taking clear, loving action. So your mom gets the care she deserves without you losing yourself in the process. If you're caring for a parent who wasn't safe or a steady presence for you, and you've never heard anyone say out loud that this is allowed to be complicated, then this is the episode for you. Here's the belief that most of us were handed. If you're a good daughter, caregiving is an act of love, full stop and no asterisks. So if your caregiving doesn't feel like love, if it feels like a duty or a fear or an old wound you keep reopening on purpose, something must be wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with you. I need to tell you something about my own life, because I don't think I can talk about this topic with any integrity if I don't. My mother was a bartender most of my childhood. My dad passed away when I was 2, so I was raised by my stepdad, and they had twin boys together. I was always the odd one out, not because my brothers weren't wonderful. I loved them, but because I never quite felt like I fit the same way they did into the family. My mom and my stepdad fought, and it got physical. I watched him hurt her more than once, and she carried that home, and it landed right on me. I remember being a little girl doing the dishes, and the water wasn't hot enough for her. She grabbed me by the hair and threw me to the floor. This wasn't a one-time thing. When things were falling apart between the adults in the house, I was usually the one who paid for it. By the time I was building my own family, I knew I didn't want my kids anywhere near any of that. So there was distance, a lot of it, and for a long time. My mom got sick, and even with everything, when it came time, I showed up for her. My brother and I walked through it together, though it was different for him. He was the baby of the family, and well, I was Shannon. I'll tell you something that still catches in my throat. Near the end, in the hospital, she mumbled something, and I leaned in and said, "I'm right here, Mom." And she said, "No, not you." And she said my brother's name instead. Later, once the dementia had really set in, she would often tell me that she hated me. I know now that wasn't really her talking, but back then, before I'd done my own healing work, every time she said it, it landed like I was 7 years old again, standing in the kitchen with wet hands. I share this because I don't want you to hear today's topic and think I'm handing you a theory. I'm handing you something that I lived. I cared for my mother at home through the end of her life, even though she was never able to tell me that she loved me, and even though caring for her meant walking straight back into the hardest part of my own story over and over. And here's the thing I want to say often, because I mean it every time. I'm so glad I pulled it together and was there for her during her final days. I wouldn't change that for anything. I'm glad I pulled our history aside and was there to hold her hand when she crossed over. I met a client a while back whose story rhymed with mine in a lot of ways. I'll call her Maureen. Maureen's mother wasn't cruel in the dramatic movie sense. She was critical, distant when Maureen needed her, and demanding when Maureen didn't have anything left to give. Maureen spent 30 years keeping her distance to protect her own peace. Then her mom fell and broke her hip, and there was no one else. Maureen became the caregiver almost overnight, coordinating rehab, medication management, sitting in waiting rooms, while every visit dragged up a version of herself she'd worked so hard to leave behind. Maureen told me, "I keep waiting to feel like the good daughter in the movies. I just feel numb and then guilty for feeling numb." If you've ever felt that way, the guilt of not feeling what you think you're supposed to feel for your parent, you are far from alone. Whether it's my story or Maureen's story or yours, most of the daughters I work with in this exact situation carry a second job that nobody talks about, managing the emotional aftermath of a relationship while also managing the logistics of the care. Here's what took me years to understand, and I want to hand it to you today. So it doesn't take you as long. Caregiving and reconciliation are two completely different things. different projects. You can do one without doing the other. You're allowed to make sure your mother is safe, fed, medicated, and treated with dignity without owning her closure, her apology, or a rewritten version of your childhood. Love is a context. It doesn't have to mean warmth. Sometimes love just means competence, showing up, making the calls, making sure she's cared for. And that's not nothing. That counts. It counts if your heart isn't soft about it. And boundaries aren't the opposite of care. Boundaries are what makes sustainable care possible. Maureen didn't feel the need to forgive her mother to hire the right home care agency, sit in on the care plan meeting, or draw a line around how often she visited and for how long. She needed a plan that let her be effective without being consumed. 6 months in, Maureen still doesn't call it a healed relationship. What she does is call it manageable. She built a structure, a home care aide for daily handoff on stuff, a standing weekly check-in call capped at 15 minutes, a hard rule that she doesn't process family history with her mom in the kitchen anymore, only in her therapist's office. Her mother is well cared for. Maureen is no longer disappearing into old patterns every time she picks up the phone. If this is your situation, here's where to start. 1, separate the 2 projects out loud. Write down, literally on a paper, caregiving task in one column and relationship healing in the other. You only have to commit to one column right now. 2, build a structure that limits exposure, not a structure that limits care. That might mean professional caregivers handling the hands-on work while you handle the logistics from a distance. That's not lesser care. It's smart caregiving. 3, get your own support. A therapist, a support group, someone who isn't your mother to process what it brings up. You cannot pour from a well that you're not allowed to refill. This week's challenge. This week, do 3 things. 1, draw a line. Pick a boundary. Just one. Time, topic, task. Write it down as a plain sentence. Example, I will not discuss the past during care visits. 2, name it to one person. Tell a friend, a partner, or your strong daughter club sisters what that boundary is. Say it out loud because that makes it real. 3, share it publicly. Post about it and tag at Clark County Senior Resources. You might be the permission slip another daughter has been waiting for. This week's mantra, I can care for her without carrying her. If this episode felt like it was speaking directly to you, it was. You don't have to figure this out alone. And here's the truth. You're not supposed to. Caregiving is not a solo journey, and trying to handle everything yourself is exactly what leads to burnout, resentment, and regret. So let me help you. If you're in crisis, hospital discharge, decline, dementia, confusion, book an urgent consultation with me, Shannon at clarkcountysr.com, or you can just text me and let's get it started. If you need help with clarity, if you need someone to help you make a plan, take action without pressure or guilt, please reach out. That's what I'm here for. I work with families, not corporations, and my loyalty is always to you. And please do these 3 things. Subscribe and rate this episode. Your review helps daughters who are drowning and overwhelmed find the relief they desperately need. Share this episode with another daughter who's carrying a complicated relationship on top of caregiving. She probably hasn't heard anyone say this out loud to be hard in this specific way. Do the challenge. Draw your line. Name it, share it, tag it at Clark County Senior Resources on Instagram. The Strong Daughters Club. If you needed to hear this today, that your caregiving still counts even without the closure, that's exactly what the Strong Daughters Club is for. It's a place where you can say, I'm caring for her and I still haven't forgiven her. And not one person will flinch. Come sit with the women who get the version of this that nobody puts on a greeting card. Join us on Facebook. I will put the link in the show notes. I'll leave you with this. I'm so glad I was there holding my mom's hand when she crossed over. Whatever your relationship with your parent has been, I hope you get a version of that too. Not because it erases the hard parts, but because it sits right alongside them. Next week, we're tackling another tough caregiving reality that no one talks enough about. You won't want to miss it. Thank you for being here. And until then, be gentle with yourself.